All right, welcome everybody. Thank you very much for joining the meeting on our Teams today. Just a reminder that we will be recording for prosperity's sake, and we hope to get this meeting online as soon as possible. Okay, if we'll make a start then, please. Apologies for absence. Sally, do we have any apologies?
I haven't received any yet.
No, okay. Do we need to do a roll call? I guess we do. So I'm here as Chairman, Kira Bentley. If you could go around and introduce yourselves, that would be great.
Councillor Liz Swallow, present.
Jane Bolton, here.
Mike Wise.
Angela Finn.
Steve has come and gone, I think, and may well pop back in again, depending on his internet connection. And we have some officers as well, I believe.
Yeah, the Town Clerk, Sally Thurston, is here.
Deputy Town Clerk, Marco Celliti.
Town Clerk's Assistant Joe King is here.
Great, so that's everybody. I think there's nobody spoken up.
We also have Councillor Kim Morgan in attendance.
Oh yes, thank you. Welcome, Kim.
As a visitor to your kind meeting.
Indeed. Thank you. So minutes of the last meeting. You've all been sent the documents. I hope everybody's had a chance to go through. Page 1 of the minutes, everybody happy?
Yes.
Yep, over the page 2. Page 3. If you're all in agreement, I'd like to sign those.
I've got a problem with 12.120.
Yeah. On
the second bullet point, it says the annual irregular amount paid to Vale of Whitehorse is over £12, rates 11,965, and licence, which is spelled wrong, equals 180. It doesn't make sense.
That should read over £12,000.
Yeah, but it says the regular amount paid to Vale of Whitehorse is over £12. Should that be £12,000?
Yeah, £12,000.
Right, yeah.
Good spot, Mike, thank you.
And licence should have a C.
Yeah.
Noun C, verbs S. Same for practice.
So with those corrections, are there any objections to me signing this as a true record? This evening we're going to put our hands up. Oh, here's Mike. I'll come back to you, Mike. But rather than do the voting online, we're going to put hands up. So if you can put hand up and speak if you need to. So I'll come back to you, Mike. You need to take yourself off mute. Thank you.
I'm voting for, so it's a...
Oh, thank you. Great. Brilliant. I'll sign those then. Thank you. Okay, number 4, declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations, please? Thank you. Public question time. Do we have any public questions?
I do have a question, but it's about the planters. So would you like me to save that for when we're talking about the planters?
Yes, please, Sally. Thank you. Anybody else? No?
No,
Thank you. Due to the resignation of Julie Farmer, we have a vacancy for a vice chair. Don't all rush at once. But do we have anyone offering to come forward as a vice chair? The suggestion is that they don't already chair a meeting already on the council, but there's no reason why anybody couldn't be vice chair of 2 or more of the council of the meetings committees. Liz, can I suggest that you step up to be vice chair? Yes.
Liz raised her hand, so.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to nominate Liz to be vice chair. Would anybody be prepared to second that? Thank you, Mike. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you.
Sorry, I just had a question about where was that on the agenda? I couldn't see it.
It's the number 6 after the public question time. Have you got it, Angela?
Yes.
Yeah. Did we vote? Sally, was that accepted?
If we could all vote again, please. Because
Yeah, okay. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Any objections? So we carry that through then, please. Welcome on board, Liz. Thank you. Financial reports then, please, number 7. Sally, would you like to lead on this, please?
yeah, so these are the end of year reports. Just one note on recreation and open spaces. You will see that there's a large expenditure under bus shelters. That was a bus shelter which we had an insurance claim for, and you'll note that under income that is also a lot larger than you would expect to see, and one cancels out the other. The other thing I'd like to bring to your attention on the recreation open spaces ones is that there was on 2203 allotment maintenance is overspent, and that was the rent transfer to the allotment society when they took over the management.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions or comments on those? We're looking specifically at the Corn Exchange, the pump house and the open spaces. Mike, do you have any comments, or as in absence of Steve with his finance hat on?
I was just looking through anything that was drastically over. These are for, we've got the reports for the end of last year, haven't we? So
yeah.
Corn Exchange looks good, doesn't it? I presume we're going to be a bit more problematic this year, aren't we?
Yes, and we've got to be realistic in terms of the income is going to be obviously cut with no bookings this quarter. And it's going to hit, I think, public meetings going forward, isn't it? And people hiring facilities is going to be reduced. We also will have reduced income from, you know, the leisure, the information centre. Angela, did you have a point? I think you're still on mute.
Yes, I know. I've emailed Sally requesting to know if we've got any bookings from August onwards, because obviously that's going to impact our income coming in. Additionally, whether there's going to be risk assessments done regarding social distancing, and obviously once it's defined how much is social distance measured as well, but obviously to see how much is potential shortfall in bookings, not just at the moment while we can't open, but when we are open, if there's going to be restrictions on people.
Yeah, very good points. Sally, have you got that in hand?
Yeah, I've got that in hand. The risk assessments, there will be model risk assessments for me to draw on for public buildings, but the National Association of Local Councils aren't advising that we open any as yet, and they will follow their advice as and when they do. In terms of income, we've got all our bookings obviously are cancelled. We do write to them every fortnight to just say that we're still closed, and so we're in touch with all our customers. But I think most plan to come back, but it's very difficult to tell, isn't it?
It is. You know, it's difficult for us, but you can imagine if that's your bread and butter, it's going to make a big impact to our budget, that's for sure, next year and ongoing, I think.
Kira, Mike's got his hands up.
Oh, sorry, Mike. Yes.
I just wanted to hook something on bus shelters. That cost there, that was the vandalism cost, was it, for a new bus shelter, Sally?
It was a car accident.
Oh, that's right. I was just wondering, irrespective of that, we just had this thing today about new bus shelters proposed, or it's later on in the agenda, isn't it?
Yeah.
But just to make sure that any bus shelters that that are proposed for the county council, and I think we need to get the message in now that we want the all steel ones, the Blackbird leased quality bus shelters that we had at the end of Volunteer Way, because what happens is that the developers will start specifying their own bus shelters, and we'll end up with different types, but they've been the most successful ones and vandalism proof. It's not for what we're talking about with with future bus shelters, but it said for all future bus shelters, and it might stop this any casual vandalism, not being totaled by a car, but breaking of glass.
Yeah, it's a good point, Mike. Thank you. Does anybody else have any queries or comments on those reports? No. Thank you very much. Item number 8 then, facilities reports. Again, Sally, would you like to just run through those for us?
Yeah, so we have an outside report from the Elms Tennis Association, which you will have in front of you, just to say that they've been incredibly busy through the COVID period. Whilst they had very strict guidance, people have been making the most of that exercise on the Elms tennis court, so that's positive.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting that we had a discussion as to whether we should close that facility in light of the COVID restrictions, because we closed the parks. But we felt that if people were sensible and providing, they were taking the necessary precautions, we kept it open, and it seems to have been well appreciated. So that was interesting in terms of a council facility that could still be open. And Mike, did you put your hand up there for a second?
Yeah, I wonder if we could send a letter of thanks to Carolyn and Alison for all the work they've done, because obviously it's been a very good facility for people.
I think that would be a really nice touch. Thank you. Can we do that, Sally?
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you.
So next on the list is Tucker's Play Area. It's still closed, unfortunately, but obviously maintenance and grass cutting has continued. Our Rosper inspector has retired, so I've looked for a new one, and Rosper are actually based in Shrivenham, so they've agreed to provide us an inspector directly at reduced cost, so that's been a considerable saving as well.
Can you remind me what Rosper stands for?
Something to do with play.
Society for Prevention of Accidents.
Thank you.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
All Saints Churchyard is next. The grass has been kept cut throughout. We are leaving some areas to go wild and provide habitat for insects, and we've had some nice comments about that as well, that towards the back of the churchyard we've left to go wild, and there's some lovely wildflowers there if anyone would like to go and have a look.
Okay, that's nice. I think the fact that we ought to not be shy of telling people that it's a wildflower area rather than we just haven't been bothered to cut it.
Yeah. So next on the list is Town Park, which has obviously also been kept up to date, and the yew hedges and the Russian vine has been kept under control. Oakwood Park is the same as Tucker's Park, still closed, but grass and everything kept up to date. Christmas lights, we are still in all the invoices have now been paid. Obviously last year was a big success, and we have a contract with the current provider for the next coming year. The Tidy team are back in action, and there's a list there of what they've done this week: Leamington Drive, Follyview Road, as well as the Hobble. The Wilderness, unfortunately, the volunteers days couldn't take place due to the COVID outbreak, but these will be rescheduled in the autumn. But we have managed to install some cameras in the Wilderness and some reptile maps. So there will be a report for the next meeting on what wildlife we've been able to monitor in there. We've also been successful in getting some free hedging plants to be planted in autumn when we hopefully can do the volunteer days. The leisure team will go in and make sure the paths are kept trimmed, and they're planning on going in and having a rubbish clearing day in there as well. And we're also awaiting the plans from the Oxford Brook students, because they were doing a plan of that area for us, so that will be interesting. The Corn Exchange, there's quite a lot going on there. You've got that in front of you. I won't read that out, but yeah, obviously we're moving forward with the place and building work, and we're keeping on top of all the maintenance and using the time that the Corn Exchange is closed to have a real thorough clean out and make sure we get on top of all the maintenance jobs. The pump house has been put to good use during the coronavirus outbreak, as becoming the Jubilee room is now full of food for the food bank. And again, we're keeping on top of it. We're using the time productively to deep clean the toilets and make sure all the maintenance jobs are done. Unfortunately, we've had a bit of vandalism on the bus shelter opposite Volunteer Way. The bin that they vandalised and ripped off. The new planters the new hanging baskets are all up, and the planters in the marketplace are being watered regularly.
Great. Thank you very much. Has anybody got any questions about that? No, the town is looking tidy actually, isn't it, at the moment? I think without the people, it doesn't get a mess. And it'd be nice when the hanging baskets and things are all established.
We do just need to look at the 10 protocol. 10 stands for temporary events notice. Now we run a bar, we don't have a franchisee in the bar in the Corn Exchange. Bigger events need a temporary events notice. So I've just put together, you've got that in your pack, a 10 protocol. So these are the people who will be asked to apply for a temporary events notice.
Thank you. Are we limited to the amount of temporary events that can go on with a licence in that property?
Yes, we are, but it's 21, so it's quite a lot. And we do have a licence in the Corn Exchange, so our regular hirers can use that licence.
Okay.
Kira, Mike's got a question.
Oh, yes, Mike, go ahead.
You know, the furore that's been today over school openings, I was just wondering whether any of the venues that we've got or the other church halls could be used for school purposes, and is that something we should bear in mind? Corn Exchange, for instance, could be used as a quite a convenient classroom with plenty of spacing.
Yeah, that's a good point, Mike. I wonder if we should perhaps contact the schools, see if they need any extra space.
I was thinking you've got the Catholic Church Hall, the Barber Rooms, the Corn Exchange. Yeah. People did want to put on other classes. That could be an opportunity.
Yeah. Sally, would it be worth contacting the schools to see, and community college, I guess?
Yeah, I'm very happy to do that.
Thank you. Thanks, Mike. Anybody else got anything or suggestions? It'd be great to see the Corn Exchange renovations going ahead. That's very exciting. If we can get that in by the summer or during the summer, that would be really good for the place. And the Wilderness looks like it's enjoying its time developing as well. It's a shame the volunteers can't get on with more stuff in there, but that's where we are. So. Good. Okay. Unless anybody's got any more comments, I'd like to move forward to number 9, the bus stops. The proposed improvements. Sally, talk us through this one then.
So you've got the document prepared by County Council. They are reviewing all their bus stops, and they've looked at the bus stops in Faringdon. Obviously, I put forward the Marlborough Street bus stop that the town council had a request from a resident, and also they're looking at putting real-time information on as many bus stops as possible. So this document, there's no funding as such at the moment. This document, that the county council want us to agree what they've put forward, or for us to discuss and think about what they've put forward, and then we can then move to the stage where we look for funding and try and move these improvements forward.
So just to clarify, because these are big figures, aren't they? Are they our bus stops that they're proposing to put in that we have to pay for?
No, the county council and developers generally put bus stops in, and then they give them, the town council has then historically adopted them, but that comes with a sum of maintenance fund money. So if we take a bus shelter, we get a sum to maintain it over a period of 10 to 15 years.
Okay, and we talked about having living roofs and potentially putting some kind of information on the bus stops, didn't we? I'm guessing this is not built into this plan.
So I have raised it with the county council that we would like any new bus stops to have the ability to have moss roofs or wildflower roofs.
And have they agreed to that?
They said they'd look into it.
Because looking at the budget, there's no reference to that kind of thing, is there?
No, there isn't. I can definitely put that forward as a suggestion. I hope they've taken that on board. I would hope there wouldn't be too much more money involved in putting a flat moss roof on a bus shelter.
Well, you would hope not, but you know, these things, if they're not bog standard, I suggest that there will be something to add. And these, I mean, fully enclosed 4-bay shelter, it doesn't, you know, there's no reference to sort of bespoke for Faringdon or that kind of thing, does there? And if we want this space to talk about town features, is there capacity to do that when they, you know, before we've got them installed, rather than modify them later? If we could clear that up. Has anybody else got any comments?
Yeah, I mean, I'd reiterate what I said before. Any bus stops that need to be vandal proof. I noticed that the ones that we're talking about at Volunteer Way, if you're on top deck of a bus and look down on the one that's as you're coming in to town from Oxford, the roof of that one collects water quite badly. So some sort of plant roof might be a lot better than what's on there at the moment, because it's a very difficult area to clean. I think making sure that we've actually got vandal-proof bus stops. And the point about the real-time information, you need power for this. I noticed that the one that is nearest to the retail park, they said they hadn't provided a power supply. And I've got a feeling that when they were installing the ones down Coxwell Road, they were supposed to have power supplies, because this real-time information, that was proposed then, because the suggestion was the town council might want to take this over, which I don't think we're very happy about. And the problem with this is the developers will try and unload it onto you, and as Sally said, there needs to be a suitable dowry that will pay for the cost of the bus shelters and for the maintenance. The problem we've had with real-time information is that the service is from Swindon, and therefore it's Swindon based, and that's why it's been very slow appearing in Oxford. So if you want to get the S6 in Oxford, you won't. It does now appear on their displays, but it didn't previously. And the final one is, of course, I've been desperate to try and get another bus stop somewhere between the fire station and the centre of town, because looking at the proposals for Sands Hill development, we're going to have bus stops about every every 20 yards along Park Road, but there's a very big gap between the fire station and the centre of town, and there's a lot of elderly people, me included, that live on the western side of town, particularly accessing the Pines and Faringdon and places like that, and Oakwood. And it'd be very handy if people didn't have to walk all the way from the fire station or all the way from the town centre to get over to that part of the town. And some years ago, we walked that walked the distance along Park Road with Lee Turner and the police and the chap from Stagecoach. And the only place that they could suggest that was safe enough for a bus stop was outside the school, well, by the library, which I thought was quite convenient because at least it would encourage people to use the library. I still don't understand why you can't have one on Gravel Walk. They said, oh, it's thing to do with sight lines. You've got exactly the same problem on Park Road, where if there's a bus there, there's not much you can do about it. You can't overtake. And I think there was a lot of nervousness about the sighting of bus stops because some years ago, a girl was killed from a bus stop on the top of Stamford Road. Unfortunately, she ran out from the back of she came out from the back of a bus and she was knocked down. And so they're very careful about sight lines in these days, which is quite right. But there does need to be some provision for another bus stop between the fire station and the centre of town, I think. End of rant.
Can we challenge that again, Sally, to ask them to look at that again? You know what happens, that was a while ago, officers change, attitudes evolve, don't they? I wonder, I think Mike makes a very relevant point there.
Well, what annoyed me was that Judith came in and said, oh, of course, I didn't know anything about this. Well, it was discussed and we actually put this to the council, and she, it was, oh, I've not invented here attitude. But the point is that school children could get off at the school, and also people for the library, and it would be quite a useful place to have a bus stop, and it's plenty wide enough for a bus to stop. And no matter what, the traffic has to stop for the bus, fine, doesn't matter.
Yeah, can I propose that we put that forward again then, Sally, and challenge the decision not to put a bus stop in that area?
Yeah, I have raised it with the officers and they found some old communication. So they found all the communication, so that that can go onto the end of this report. So yeah, that's fine. So if that's in your proposal, that's no problem.
I think so. I mean, it's worth a conversation again, isn't it? So do we have to respond to this today, Sally?
Yeah, we just need to obviously add the request for a bus stop onto Gloucester Street and agree these proposed changes, subject to obviously a budget being found from developers and county council.
Okay, let's do that then.
We'll just need a vote on that.
Okay, all those in favour, please put your hand up. Thank you. Anyone against? No, so that's gone through, no problem. Thank you. Item number 10 then, please, allotments. Oh, this is about the lease, isn't it? Yes. You should all have the terms and conditions from the National Trust, who are the landowners. Any problems or comments about that? Are you all happy that I sign the lease? Who has to sign this, Sally?
So this is just the heads of terms. So we're just agreeing the heads of terms at this stage. The actual lease will come through this committee and then to Finance and Council, because that's obviously a financial commitment for a considerable amount of time.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, I'm not particularly familiar with this kind of lease. Does anybody have any experience or any reservations to cite? Have we had anybody legal look at this?
The heads of terms haven't changed very much at all, and they're in line with the Allotment Society. Are very happy with the heads of terms, obviously, and they manage the allotments on our behalf.
Okay.
Mike's got his hand up.
Mike.
I think Steve has commented on it, and I think he's happy with it, and I'm happy with it. I think it's fairly straightforward, isn't it? So I'm happy with it.
It does look straightforward, but you know, these things have a habit of coming up and biting you if you don't find out, don't they?
Yeah.
I see we're questioning the name of the tenant we wish to have on the lease. Presumably we'll sort that out with the allotment people. Is that correct, Sally? I've just got that in red here.
Yeah,
Please,
they called us the parish council. That was the main correction. That's been corrected now.
Okay, great. All right, I propose that we accept their terms and conditions then. Can I have a vote? All those in favour, please. Okay, thank you. And anyone against? I think we've all voted in favour, haven't we? No. Okay. Thank you very much. That's carried. That's quick and easy. Item number 11 then, trees. Sally, do you want to talk about the tree policies and management?
So this is a policy that we didn't have in place before, a tree management policy, and obviously it's very prudent to do so. We do get a lot of requests for trees that are overhanging or birds in trees causing a mess. So this is purely to make things really clear what we will and won't do, but obviously we'll always enter into discussion with a neighbour.
Okay. That all looks very common sensey.
Kira, you have a question for Mike.
Oh, Mike, yes, go ahead.
It was just that one clause about interference with television and satellite internet signals. I presume it's probably too late now because most people will probably have satellites installed. But it is a problem if someone has got trees that are going to grow and interfere with television reception. I presume we'd come to some agreement, to some terms, wouldn't we, with someone who was going to be disadvantaged that way?
Yeah, yes, I think that says that we welcome discussion with concerned residents living nearby to Faringdon Town Council owned trees. The providers generally come out. We've had a provider out today, so if there is a problem, the providers act first.
Yeah, because it can be a problem. It's only for those with south facing, or if you've got a tree 17 degrees south, east of south, that you can have a problem.
Sound like you've got a bit of experience there, Mike.
Oh yes, with satellite. Satellite dish in the back garden. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
And the happy days when analog was there.
So is this a policy that we're putting forward today, Sally, and need to vote on?
Yes, please.
Okay, so all those in favour that we adopt the policy as writ, please put your hand up. Thank you very much. That is carried. Everybody's voted yes. Thank you. Item number 12. Oh yes, the benches and planters. We have been undergoing a public survey about the planters and the benches, and we've had some feedback. I hope you've all seen the pretty charts and the comments. Sally, do you want to take us through that?
I'll just read the public question out first. A resident has written in to say that he was surprised to see the council were thinking of putting more fixed seating and planters in the marketplace when we already have 3 fixed seats and benches. Could I ask why even more seating and planting is thought necessary? So that was a question from a member of the public. And then should I take you through the results of the survey
Well, shall we answer the question first? I think really it was felt, well, the town regeneration subcommittee proposed that we had more seating areas with the objective that Faringdon actually becomes somewhere that people come and enjoy recreational time and activities without having to shop or do anything specific, but actually just come and spend time in our beautiful town. Yes, accepted that there are already seats and seating areas, but actually they're quite well used, and there's definitely room for more, it was felt. So that was the rationale behind adding more seating areas in a public space. I don't know if anybody has anything they'd like to add to that. I think we were all privy to the discussion. No? Okay. Do you think that answers sufficiently, Sally?
Yeah, I can write to the gentleman and give him that answer.
Okay, thank you. All right, the survey.
So you've all got the summary of the survey in front of you. The seating was particularly popular, with 93% of those who answered the survey, which was 117 residents, thought the additional seating was a good idea. And then I've summarised the comments below. 20 residents commented that they thought that was a good idea and a plan. 15 residents were worried if people would actually sit there with the traffic fumes and things. A lot of people, or 9 people, commented that they wanted to make sure that they were removable in case there was some events in the town, and 8 people said that they felt they shouldn't be in a row, they should be a bit more sociable and facing each other. Okay. And then obviously you can read the rest of the comments there.
That was a good good undertaking of people, you know, that was good engagement, wasn't it? We don't normally get over 100 people responding, so that's positive. Yeah, 83% liked the design of the benches. There were quite a few comments to say that they were pleased that they were going to be recyclable material. And you can see the summary of the comments below. Some people felt they looked a little bit too plasticky, and wood and metal would be better in the town centre. The one up by Highworth Road lay-by, that's made out of recycled plastic, and that's wearing quite well, isn't it? And it seems to look quite rustic.
It's very similar, that one, to the ones that
yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, I don't think they look tacky. I think they look quite nice quality.
Okay, the planter, 79%, which was that 98 people felt that the planters were a good idea. However, they weren't as popular as the benches, and there were some really interesting comments actually that we hadn't thought of, so that was a really good exercise to go out to the public. A lot of people were worried that they would be too heavy to move, which I think is probably the case, to be honest. You know, for the events, we thought about unscrewing the benches and being able to move them, but actually once the planters are full of earth, they are going to be extremely heavy. And so 10 people remarked that they were nice and that was a good idea, but 10 people remarked that they weren't very nice and it wasn't a good idea to put planters there, and they were, for the reasons being that they wouldn't be easy to move, and that they would cost a considerable amount to keep planted and watered.
I think they're good points. I mean, the vandalism or if they fall in, when they look scruffy, they look scruffy, don't they? They don't add to the town at all.
Kira,
but when they look nice, they do.
Kira, Mike's got a question.
Mike.
Sorry.
Yeah, can you just remind me, how was the survey done?
So it's done on a form on the internet.
Oh, so there'll be the older generation won't have contributed a great deal then. That was all.
Yeah, obviously during this pandemic, we couldn't get a physical survey out.
No, I wondered if it had been on the website, that was all.
Oh yeah, it's been on the website.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, and it was a form rather than a sort of tick box exercise on social media. we drove it through social media to try and get people to engage, which seemed to work, but inevitably it's difficult to get engagement from everybody, isn't it? Especially at the moment. I mean, I'm feeling that the seating is good and received positive, but the planters, the fact that people have actively said no, I think it would be naive to just ignore that. I don't know how other people feel.
Kira, Liz has got a hand
Liz,
up.
yeah.
I just noticed that one of the comments was, what about an outdoor stone chess table or something? So maybe rather than planters, something that, you know, could be more sort of a game or something, or interactive, maybe for young people and other people who come to the town. Could be a sociable thing. Something to just look into anyway. It's just something I noticed.
I think the point about the weight is very important, actually, because you know, if you have the problem with Follyfest and trying to move something like that, I think that really is something to be taken into consideration. So, good point.
I agree. I think, you know, it needs to be substantial enough to be a permanent feature, but then the nature of our town centre is that we need to be able to move it.
Angela's got a hand raised, Kira.
Angela, go ahead.
Thank you. I think it might be an idea if we go back and have a look at the planters as well, because I think the planters are a good idea, but I think with the weight and the movement, or the lack of movement, might actually have a major impact, especially in you know, our functions down there. Regarding your point about, you know, people not completing the survey, I just wanted to point out really that, you know, we put it out there for people to complete, but it's their right to complete it or not to complete it as they see fit. After all, we are in a democracy. So I think it's really good that we got the level of response that we did, and very appreciated for people, you know, taking the time to complete the survey. Thank you.
Thanks, Angela. Some good points, I think. I think we do need to look at planters again. I think it would be naive to ignore the feedback. I suggest, I don't think we should just buy more benches. If that is what we come out with at the end, that might be a result. But I think as we looked at planters and an option, because it's a more decorative thing, perhaps we should try and source something which is used and look in other towns for what options they have. Maybe smaller ones that can be bolted down would be the answer. Do people think that's a good idea, or should we go with more benches and never mind the planters, or go with the planters despite the feedback? Liz, you've got your hand up.
I was just going back to the idea of we want to bring more people into the town centre. So back to the games idea to encourage families more. You could have like a hopscotch path or something, or you could have like, I don't know, noughts and crosses where people move across the board rather than having pieces that could be stolen. It's just, you know, maybe rather than planters, just something that could, you know, draw people to the town centre, something like that. But benches are a good idea to encourage people to sort of be there. But of course, it's just managing that with youth and things like that. If you give them something to do there that's sort of constructive, then it's not going to get destroyed or something. That's my thought.
Jane, thank you, Liz. Jane.
Kira, Angela's got a hand up.
Oh, okay. Let's go with Jane first, and then Angela.
Right. What Liz just said, if anybody's been into Didcot recently, they have games painted on the pavement outside their cinema. Very good idea and very well used. Just an idea, but that could be in as well as the planters and the benches. It doesn't have to be on its own.
Angela, thank you, Jane. That was interesting. Angela?
Yes, I mean, I think it's a good idea to have some sort of kind of games in there for the children. But I quite like the idea of planters, because I think, you know, walking into town when we got all the blooms out and the hanging baskets, it does look very nice. It looks very, very welcoming and a very comfortable space. And I like the idea. But obviously, if they're too heavy to move, that's an issue. But, you know, I'd be I'd like to see a couple more planters in the centre, and I'm quite happy for children's kind of hopscotches, and you know, as Liz mentioned about maybe you know, a table for games, you know, is suitable as well, to make it a nice inclusive space for as many people as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. Yeah, that's a good point. Mike, you've got your hand up.
Yeah, I support the idea of the games. I think that's a good idea, particularly if you can get more people, you get children to play in the centre. With regard to the planters, I think we have to be careful, don't we, to make sure that we don't do something that's going to be counterproductive. I think benches would be a good idea, so we can move those. But as regard plant, I think going to the smaller planters makes, I don't think there's got as much impact. That's the problem. But as Angela's right, we could perhaps get a couple that aren't going to be so intrusive as far as Follyfest is concerned.
Can I suggest that we look at other town centres then and see what solutions they might have to offer in terms of alternatives to big sturdy planters, but still have an impact, and that we don't rush into just putting more benches for the sake of not having planters, the feedback, and we look at the games idea that Liz says Jane suggested in Didcot. Sally, would that be something we could task you with?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot of different options for planters. There's ones that fit onto street lighting, and so there are various different options that we can look at. They don't have to be in the square. Is the committee proposing that we proceed with the benches whilst I investigate the planters?
My only reservation about that, you know how I like to get on with things, is we might need them to be complement each other, whatever the solution is that we come up with.
Okay.
Can I just suggest moss walls? Just some that we talk about planters, but you know, moss walls are good for air pollution and things. Just an idea, and it's quite aesthetic and calming. But I don't know if that's possible.
I like the idea, Liz, but I don't know what walls we would be able to put it on, because I'm guessing we couldn't do anything with the old town hall.
You can get standalone, but again, it's fixing it. I've seen them, particularly in London. They might be quite expensive, but maybe I'll try and look into it a bit, see if I can find something.
Do you want to have a look and perhaps put suggestions to Sally if you find something that you think might be viable?
Okay,
Jane,
I'll do that.
Yeah, thank you. Jane, you have a point? Jane? No. Mike, do you want to speak?
Yeah, I think we'd have a problem with being a listed building, and everything in the town centre is a listed building, and I think we'd have great problems in trying to change the outlook of it. You know, we've tried things in the past, haven't we? Tried putting things in the old town hall, and it's been rejected.
Yes, I've seen the ones that have round lampposts. They're quite nice, that are high up, and they have a big impact. So maybe if Sally, we can look at alternatives. Do we want to go ahead with the benches as planned and just look at alternatives for now, or do we want to wait? What do people think? Mike?
I think we should go ahead with the benches.
Thank you.
The problem
Liz?
we have
sorry,
the planters is that we were going to buy from different sources anyway, so there might be a matching problem anyway.
Okay, I just think with the outside benches, we're supporting local businesses if we actually sort of encourage people to come into the town, so we should probably go ahead with that. Just especially the cafes and stuff, maybe just help them out a bit. You know, I think we should.
Okay. I propose that we go ahead with the benches then, and look into alternatives for the planters, and come back to the table with those. Is that okay, Sally?
Yeah, that's fine. We need a vote on that.
Another point you want to make? Yeah. All those in favour then, please raise your hands. Thank you. I believe that's everybody. Thank you. Good discussion. Town Park, then, please. I'm hoping that you've seen some of the ideas. Sally, do you want to lead on this one?
Yeah, so we were looking at the lease for Town Park because I think lots of improvements were mooted, but we didn't want to progress with investigating any ideas until we had a lease, because at the moment it's on a rolling lease. That was found out while we were doing the neighbourhood plan. And I think that the lease could be at this stage withdrawn at any time. So if there was some sort of application in, we don't own the park, it's leased from County Council. So we want it for a longer lease. So I approached County Council and they aren't willing to do an asset transfer, but they are willing to do what length lease we were thinking about and what sort of estimated cost of any improvements that we might make, so they can then suggest a length of lease.
Okay, I mean, I think a lot depends on what we want to do with it, obviously, but I would say a long lease. Mike, you've got a point to make.
Yeah, if anybody wants to know a bit of background to this, if you look at the neighbourhood plan, the evidence base, the actual neighbourhood plan itself, there are appendices to the neighbourhood plan, because we had to do this for each of the green spaces. And there's one for the town park, and it's got all the documentation, which should be online to be able to read. Initially, that land, including the car park, was all one. And then the Vale took the car park bit and the lease was changed. I think initially it was in perpetuity, but then the county council had changed it so that it was, I think it was 3 months or 6 months either way. And we thought that we'd actually got the lease in perpetuity because there was then the issue of the Vale wanting to push a Waitrose supermarket on that piece of land adjacent to the Gloucester Street car park and the library, which was, completely unsuitable. And we found that the county council were all in favour and wanted to move the wall to enable the better access, which would have been irrelevant because the access at the top was too constrained. And then we found that it was only, was it, Sally, 3 months or 6 months either way on the town park. But you can see, I think the original documents there, which had the area of the original plan, then the car park was built and what we've got at the moment. So it is a very short lease, and I'm surprised that the county council wanted to hang on to it. I suspect they've got this idea that that piece of land with the woodland on it might be developed, although it was thrown out by the inspector as being essentially a cordon sanitaire between the gentry of Faringdon House and the town. Whereas at the time, the developers and the district council and all the protagonists for Waitrose saying it's just a few scrubby trees, and in fact it was deliberately planted. And also there's a water main running all the way through it, which would be very difficult to shift. So I'm surprised that they're being so insistent on hanging on to it, but that's the way it is at the moment, I'm afraid.
Thank you, Mike. That's interesting. I didn't know some of that. So thank
you.
you.
If you look on the evidence base, sorry, not the evidence base, the actual appendices to the neighbourhood plan itself on the green spaces, you can see all that documentation there. It's all online. It's on our website.
Okay. I mean, I would say if we're going to make substantial investment to renovate the site and make it more used, we need a substantial length of lease on it to get a return on our investments. And I wonder whether we could ask for something like a 99-year lease. I don't know how feasible that is. Sally, have you got a feel for what they think would be reasonable?
Well, I think that would need to be an absolute minimum of 25 years for us to be able to get any sort of funding to improve the park. I think that would be perfectly reasonable to ask for a 99-year lease. So, because I think if we're looking at something like the diagrams that or the pictures that I've put on the bottom of the report, that would be tens of thousands of pounds to make that sort of amphitheatre in that space. So So I think that would need to be an absolute minimum of 25 years, and I think we should start with 99.
Okay.
Oh, sorry, Mike has a question.
Yes,
yeah,
Mike.
I just worry why they're being so petty about it. I suspect that it's, you know, they've got their eyes on potentially realising the value of that site. And you know, maybe the library's under, you know, it's all part of the same thing, isn't it? It's all part of their estate, and I get very, you know, a bit worried about this.
When I've spoken to them about land in
lease. Sorry, we couldn't put anything on it without a longer lease. But I bet they'd balk at 99 years. They may come down, but it's not worth it otherwise.
When I've spoken to the county about land in the past, they're very keen to explain that they now have a policy where, you know, they're looking at commercial management of the land, and that has an impact inevitably on what can be used for public use and the conditions. So I suggest that we ask them for a 99-year lease and see what they come back with. If you think that's viable, Sally, let's give that a try. Do you think?
Yes, yeah, I think that would be what we should start with.
Okay, let's do that then.
We just need a vote on that, Kira.
Okay, can I have your vote and support for that then, please? Raise your hands. Thank you, that's everybody. We'll do that. And in light of what they do come back with, I think we can't really discuss what we would like to do with it unless we got it for a substantial amount of time. But certainly looking along the lines of investing a considerable amount of money to make it more of an asset that's used extensively as a public space. And Sally's put some ideas that we were talking about to make it a community space. It's been commented that we have a big affinity for our memorial and remembrance parades, but it's very much around religion and the church. And when there's a civic event, we tend to base around church and Church of England religion, and there's nowhere really in town that is a more central coming together where people perhaps want to sit and remember or put some flowers. And this thought that the town park could be perhaps a community area that would be respectful and somewhere that people could reflect on town events. It's well used and it's well cited, and perhaps ideas around that as a meeting place or a public space for performance would be useful. So that's the rationale behind it, really.
Kira, sorry, Mike and Angela's got a question.
Yes, Mike. You're on mute.
No,
I think that's
the comments.
just
It's left over from before, I think.
Angela. Oh, no, it's just Angela.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry, so was mine. It was from the vote. I forgot to remember it, so sorry.
You're all keen. I'm just putting my battery in because I'm running out of battery. There we go. Yes, has anybody got any thoughts about the idea of it being a community space? Obviously, we'll need to come back depending on the lease.
Can I say it is a community space now, isn't it? I wouldn't get too concerned about the fact, you know, Remembrance Day and things like that, because they're, you know, national institutions and they are what they are. You know, that's the way it is. I think it's important that we take part in, you know, in national events that way, not just, otherwise we'd be seen to be isolationist. And that's why I think things like the civic service are important. Not that I'm a churchgoer, but I did reintroduce it after 2009, after a lapse of many years, because the people of the town like it, and that's why it's important to do that. It's the same with the Remembrance Day. I wouldn't say it isn't necessarily it's religious service, but that's the way it is, and that's it's not you're not going to change that. But the gathering, of course, the main centre is in the town centre itself, around the old town hall in the marketplace.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else got any comments? Nope. Okay, so Sally, if you get back to us with that, and we'll just keep thinking about ideas or mulling it over about how that space might be used a little bit more. Okay. Southampton Street car park. Anybody seen it? Quite a lot of work's gone on with that. It looks really good. It's doing really well. It was lovely to see the volunteers putting the planting in. And the cycle hub I've seen it being used. So that's really good. There's just a few bits and pieces to go, but we're nearly there with that. That's a good job.
Kira,
Sally,
I think Mike has a question.
Go on, Mike.
I think we should send a letter of congratulations to those who've done it, to Pam and to Earth and Faith. They've done an excellent job and they made it a lot more attractive. So well done to them.
Yeah, definitely echo those thoughts. Can we send a formal thank you, Sally?
Of course.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I did wonder whether we wanted more plants or whether it had been all planned specifically to grow into, because people were offering potentially some plants, but I can imagine that not tying into the planting scheme. Are we still looking for plants, or is it definitely done and dusted?
I think the two main flower beds are done and dusted because they've been designed to grow and to the space. The other flower bed opposite with the rosemary in there might be scope there, but that would be better to go through Pam. Okay,
yeah. What I didn't want is people just sort of pushing plants and cuttings in willy-nilly. I had a feeling there was an overview, so I'm suggesting people contact you.
I think it's early days yet. I mean, it's only just been planted and it's been very dry. But the rosemary will be very big. So will the sage, by the look of it, and all those will start to fill out. And if there's any gaps, I'm sure they can be filled in next year.
And we're watering those regularly, aren't we, Sally?
We are.
Great. Yeah. Thank you. I think that will make a big difference. Okay, number 15, Vale Deep Clean. Vale of the White Horse are prioritising a deep clean. Sally, do you want to ask or make some suggestions on this?
So it's just, if any members have got any suggestions to put forward to prioritise for deep clean of the town. So they vote by the year and they give a deep clean, get rid of any weeds, pick up all the litter. So it's any areas that members have seen that they feel could benefit from a deep clean. They can be emailed to me as well over the next few days.
Do we want to put that out publicly, sort of for suggestions?
We can, but they have to come through us, and then we have to prioritise them. So.
Okay. Is everybody happy with that? Good. Better ways to school then, please.
Okay, so obviously anyone who's been around for any length of time will know how long this project has been going on. Since 2013, the cycle routes were put forward, and we now have a little bit of progress. So the first part of the route has been to consultation, and you've got the the report in front of you. The report is confidential because it's not in the public domain until the 18th of June. But basically, we need to say whether the town council agree that this part of the route gets put forward.
Okay, well we're very clear that we definitely want it to go forward, and we have no objections. I'm correct in that, aren't I? Mike, you've got a comment?
Yeah, I propose that we go forward. I noticed that there was correspondence, wasn't there, on the emails, and I think Sherwood was getting upset about, I think, perhaps some of the comments that people were making, but I think what's proposed is quite sensible. I just got some little worries about when it says Southampton Street. Are they talking about all of Southampton Street, the part that goes on to the marketplace, in terms of widening the pavements there? Because that would be very difficult for car access.
No, Mike, if you look at the maps at the back, that shows just a very small area.
That bit on, okay, that's fine, as long as that's out.
Yeah,
I think I'm all for that as a cyclist, and one who goes to the health centre on my bike as well. So I tend to go up Park Road and come back down Southampton Street, and I think it's important about being careful with pedestrians. People shouldn't go racing. That they ought to be respectful for pedestrians, which I always try to do. But it is very convenient if that were made better for cyclists.
Okay, so I propose that we accept those plans and move forward with that. All those in favour, please raise your hands. Thank you. Great. Thank you very much.
So the second part, Kira, is to so you've all seen the whole route. We've still got some parts, the second and third parts of the route, where there are some issues. So there's issues with the adoption of the Follyview estate, and there's some issues with land ownership just adjacent to Tuckers Park. So I've spoken to the highways officer and asked if we could put all the signage in for the whole route, but keep the cycling parts covered until we have agreement, because obviously it's all suitable for walking currently, but there are some areas that need some adjustment and some different orders in place to allow people to cycle on them. So my suggestion is that we proceed with all of the signage and cover the cycling until a time when we can uncover it.
Yeah, I think that sounds very sensible. Do I need to propose that then, Sally? Do we need to vote on that?
Yes, please.
Okay, so all those in favour of putting the signage but covering until that's agreed. Thank you. That's everybody. Thank you very much. We might actually get it before the end of the decade, Sally. It'll just be 2 decades it's taken. Excellent. Okay, we're nearly there. I can see the light at the end of the tunnel, folks. Item number 17, items for information only, please. Sally, do you want to run through those?
Yeah, so the committee asked me if I would investigate the ownership of the Eagles Park, which is a very small area of land opposite the Swan on the corner of the Eagles, and it is District Council owned.
Is it?
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting. Thank you. And the old play equipment?
So members who have been on the council for a long time will remember a piece of play equipment that was at the allotments, and it was put there to be repaired, but it could never be repaired, and it's slowly sunk into the ground. But we finally managed, we couldn't get anyone because it's too heavy to remove, but we finally got someone to remove it and take it away. The Allotment Society managed to get someone to do that.
That's good. Thank you very much. That's great.
And thirdly, I had a meeting today with the District Council. They have requested that we consider taking on the cleaning of the toilets, and there will be a sum of money for this, but I have some, just a heads up really, I have some sums to do, and I am waiting for an official request, so I'll bring that to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. Agenda items for the next meeting. Does anybody have anything that they would like to bring forward to the next meeting, please?
Liz would.
Liz?
Oh, just a minute. I'm trying to unmute myself. Oh, just unmuting myself. Just a second.
You're there?
Yeah, I'm coming.
Yeah.
Hello, I'm just here. Right. Just something about the Black Lives Matter. I don't know if there's anything we need to look at our council. If we just do a brief audit, just to make sure that we're sort of, because this is a key point of focus at the moment. Various, big towns obviously are looking into it. Whether there's anything we need to do, I don't know whether the National Association of Local Councils have got any recommendations, but just something to think about, maybe, like street names and things like that. As there's nothing offensive in Faringdon, we just want to be a bit proactive, I suppose. But I don't think I've heard anything, but just a thought, really.
Are you thinking in terms of, statues?
Well, statues, yeah, that's one of them, and just making sure there's nothing offensive in Faringdon, that there's anything that the council sort of can control or anything like that, really.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sally, has anything come forward from the clerks? Nothing's come forward from the OALC regards that, but I don't know if you've heard anything from your group.
No, there hasn't been any national advice as yet.
Okay. Mike, you've got your hand up.
I don't think we've got anything in Faringdon that would be controversial at all. I think we're completely representative in terms of the population, in terms of diversity. It's interesting, if you look at the evidence-based review and look at the population of Faringdon, I think 95% of the population was actually born in England. I think 97% white, and I think we're only 3% ethnic. And these were probably people from South Africa or wherever. So we're not a very diverse community at all. And that's the way it is in Faringdon. I think it's changed since the last census. It'll be very interesting to see what the 2021 census shows us. But I don't think there's anything. We haven't got any statues, not yet. I'm looking at this to see if I can get one put up. But I've sold all my slaves, so it's I was just reading the 1001 Nights, all 17 volumes, and it's very interesting where the Arabs have got Mamelukes, all white slaves, of course.
Yeah. I like to think that Faringdon is quite a diverse community. So yes, as you say, it'll be interesting to see on the 2021 census whether our demographic has changed. But I think, we're quite, we celebrate difference in Faringdon and welcome it. So it would be disappointing to think that, we were not ahead of the game on that. But I will stand corrected if anybody can find anything or has any comments about that. So
has anyone, sorry, it's Kim. Have you seen, there was a BBC News article about a rapper who's had a #1 hit. It's called Rover, but apparently he was raised in Faringdon from age 9. And there is a little blip that apparently at that time, maybe he's mid-20s, late 20s, that Faringdon was not a diverse place. And I just thought to myself, I wonder if anyone else has seen this one sort of throwaway sentence in this article that says Faringdon was not a diverse place to grow up. It was like me, my sister, and my cousin were the only black kids in school. And I didn't know if anyone has actually ever seen. It's still, if you go to the Oxford News for the BBC on the BBC News on the Oxford tab, and it's like his single Rover is the new hit. But anyway, there is a line in there, and I just thought I can't post this online because I'm not going to get But I did find it very interesting that obviously this guy would now we have does he still live here? Who knows? A famous rapper. But apparently in years past, he didn't think that Faringdon was very diverse.
Wow, that's really interesting. You sure it's our Faringdon though? Because
it did say Faringdon. And it was under the Oxford bit of news in BBC. I will find it for you, the exact, so you can look for it yourself. I mean, it was quite. I mean, you read things and you think, what am I reading? Oh my God, that's us.
Could I just interject?
Okay, the article's subject line is musicians hit single experience surreal.
Wow.
It's from 5 days ago. His name is Simba with an S and then a 1.
Can
Simba.
I just interject? That's not really facilities.
No, I know, of course, yes.
If Liz would like to put that onto a council agenda, then if she could send me an email, that would be great.
Yes, okay. I think we ought to encourage diversity in Faringdon because there is a lot more nationalities living around me in my new estate. So I think with all the new estates popping up, we have a lot more diversity in Faringdon, and there are a lot more.
If you'd like to pop me an email, Liz, then I can put that on the council agenda.
Will do. Okay.
Thank you all. Thank you. Does anybody else have any proposals for agenda items for the next meeting then? Mike, you do have your hand up. I'm not sure if that was a...
No, that was something
No,
else.
that was a legacy from before. Thank you. So if there are no further comments, I will draw a close to the meeting at 20:31. Thank you very much for your attendance, everybody. Much appreciated.
Okay.